Hi everyone, welcome back. Hello there. How are you? It's so good to see you. We'll sing and be happy. We're all here together again. Alright, great job. And really quickly, I just want to remind you about the 3 R's. They are respectful, responsible, and reasonable. Alright, so if you think back a little bit, we learned about what the heartbeat of music was called. Just like how our bodies have a heartbeat that's always going, always pumping to help keep us alive, music has its very own heartbeat. And the heartbeat of music is called the steady beat. So let's practice that steady beat. So let's get our hands ready. We're going to pat on our lap. Now, because it's the steady beat, it needs to stay the same. That means it's going to be the same between you and me, right? So let's get our hands ready. We're just going to pat the steady beat. Good. Remember, the steady beat has to stay the same, just like a constant pulse. So now let's try to practice our steady beat, but let's try practicing it while we sing a song. How about Little Sally Walker? Let's get our hands ready. 1, 2, ready, go. Little Sally Walker, sitting in a saucer. That was a great job. So if we want to write out how this music sounds, we can do that. And if you think back a little bit ago, we started to talk about this some, and I had 2 different kinds of pictures that I like to use. The first thing I used was this heart. This is a heart, and I use the heart to show where the steady beat is. But I can also use the heart when there's only one sound that happens in a steady beat. So when we're singing Little Sally Walker and we get to the line, "Rise, Sally, rise," that word rise, it only has one sound there, or one syllable. There's only one syllable or one sound that happens in one steady beat. So there, we would use the heart. But what about the parts where there's 2 sounds or 2 syllables in one steady beat? The Sally or the little. Well, there I used something else that has 2 little hearts on it. It's got these 2 little hearts, and I call it a tiny. So say tiny. When we count this one, we call it by its name. So we just say tiny. What's really neat about tiny is that it has 2 little hearts here. And that's when there's 2 sounds or syllables that happen in one steady beat. So, let's take a look at, Let's take a look at this pattern. This pattern's got 4 heartbeats going straight across. So when you count those heartbeats, those steady beats, you call it by its name. So you just say heart. So I'm going to start patting a steady beat, and then I'm going to count us in, and then I want us to try and count this from left to right. 1, 2, ready, go. Heart, 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 heart. Because see, we've got 4 hearts left to right, so it's just heart, 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 heart. It's really important to make sure that those hearts line up with your steady beat, because the hearts and the steady beat last the same amount of time. So let's try something else. Alright, we've got a tiny, a heart, and a heart. So let's get our hands ready to pat again. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny, tiny heart, heart. You know, that kind of reminds me of that first line of Little Sally Walker. Little Sally Walker. That sounds just like tiny, tiny heart, heart, right? That's pretty neat. Okay, so this one's a little bit different, so let's look. Left to right, we have a heart, a tiny, a heart, and a heart. 1, 2, ready, go. Heart, tiny, heart, heart. Good. Let's try the next one. Alright, left to right, we've got a heart, a tiny, a heart, and a tiny. 1, 2, ready, go. Heart, tiny, heart, tiny. Good. Now on this next one, I'm not going to tell you what it is left to right before we try counting it together. Just remember that when we count tinies, we say tiny. When we count hearts, we say heart. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny, 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 tiny. Good job. Let's try the next one. Alright, same thing. Remember, when you see a tiny, or those two little hearts, you gotta say tiny. When you see a heart, you say heart. Remember, what's really neat about tiny is that tiny is when you have two sounds or two syllables that happen in one steady beat. The hearts are used when we have one syllable in a steady beat. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny heart, tiny heart. That kind of reminds me of a song we've sung before. Let's try that again. Let's see if I can figure out what song that is. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny heart, tiny heart. That reminds me of apple tree, right? Apple tree, apple tree. Because there's two sounds or two syllables that happen in one steady beat for the word apple, but there's only one sound or syllable for tree. Apple tree, tiny heart, tiny heart. Wow, that's pretty neat. Let's check out the next one. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny, tiny, tiny heart. That sounded familiar too. Let's try that one more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Tiny, tiny, tiny heart. It's the next line of apple tree. Will your apple fall on me? And what's really cool about this line is that if you look, will your is two separate words, but they both happen in that one steady beat. So you've got those two sounds, or those two syllables, that happen in one steady beat for will your, for apple, and for fall on. But me just has that one sound, that one syllable that happens in that one steady beat. So it's, will your apple fall on me? Tiny, tiny, tiny heart. You know, that's really pretty cool. And so now that we've learned how we can write out different sounds and how we can write out our music, think of all the different patterns and songs that you can come up with using those tinies and those hearts. What are other words you can think of that have two sounds or two syllables in them? I challenge you this week to try and think of another song that you know and see how you might write it out using tinies or hearts, or even just come up with your own patterns. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon, and I love you lots. Bye-bye.